Okay, so here's my fun mic drop moment because people looking at me at the outset probably wouldn't think this would be my story. But I was a sick and suffering, hopeless and helpless alcoholic and drug addict.
This is StRest. I'm Kirsten Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest.
Hi, friends. You know how we always talk about gratitude and how you list 5 things that you're grateful for in the morning, and then it's really important to list 5 things you're grateful for in the evening. Well, my next guest really has made an art of that in how you feel about yourself, how you reduce your stress, and how you show up for other people. She has a podcast and she speaks. It's called Gratitudeology, but you might know her as NYC Fit Fam. That's how it all started years ago on QVC with a little brand called Zuda. She's gone from not only one of the very first health and wellness influencers to now being somebody who not only helps some of the biggest brands get on the air, but you individually. How do you show up as a brand in your life, with your family, with your friends? And how can that help you reduce stress? Kind of goes back to purpose, right? And being grateful. We talk about everything from addiction to her mom, Joan London, to some tangible things that you can do today that are going to help you feel better about how you show up in the world. And that also well-known imposter syndrome. Her name is Jamie Hess. And if you haven't met her, now's the time. This is StRest. So Jamie Hess, I feel like we are sisters from another mother, all about fitness and wellness. You're at QVC. You're back at QVC now. How is it? How is it being there with something different?
I love it. Here's the thing. It's funny. People only knew me. So when I started, let me back up so your listeners understand. When I started at QVC, I started as the rep for their proprietary athleisure brand. So it's like their version of Lululemon.
Which was great. Zuda. I loved it.
Which was
Wore it
great.
all the time.
It was called Zuda. And when I got there, Kirsten, you were literally my first friend. You were my first person who was not just, everyone's kind, but who I connected with on a deeper level. And I think it's because, we're sisters from another mister. And I did Zuda there for 5 years. Now, that very much aligned with my health and wellness sensibility. But the only place that America or an audience knew me as like an apparel girl was at QVC. Outside of QVC, I've done television on behalf of other types of brands for a gazillion years. And I actually call myself, and we'll get into this, but I call myself the brand ninja. And what I mean by that is I can help any brand on the planet because I believe everything is a writing and messaging problem. So for me, when Zuda ended and they said, where do you want to go next? I said, where do you need me? Like, take your pick, because there's nowhere that I'd feel uncomfortable. It's all just about getting immersed with the brand and figuring out how to tell their story. And so now I do all consumer electronics. And a lot of people are like, wait, what? Like, that's so different. But to me, it's not different. It's just about geeking out on a brand and getting in there with their core values and then telling that story.
What is your favorite thing about being at QVC? Like, pull back the curtain.
Okay, so I think, and I'm sure you would agree, it's really unique. Most people would probably think that it's pretty cutthroat and people aren't nice. Anytime you combine television, which can be pretty cutthroat and not nice, and like the fashion industry almost, because we do a lot of fashion, you would think there would be a lot of women back there who were just awful to each other. And because I worked in the PR fashion industry for many years. I worked in public relations for 17 years, but I worked in fashion and entertainment. And let me tell you something, girlfriend. In New York City, PR fashion girls are not nice. They are not nice. Sure. And so to come to QVC, my biggest delightful learning was how lovely it is. I mean, it truly is a family. It's an awesome environment. And I really love it. So much so that I, as you know, I moved here and I drank the Kool-Aid all the way. And I live here in Pennsylvania. And like, this is a big part of my life. And I love it there.
You're so right. People say, oh, is so-and-so like they are in TV? Oh, is this person? Yes, you do not make it at QVC if you are not a nice person. If you are
which
not,
is really unusual.
Right? And we all want everybody to succeed. I mean, to the point where Jamie first went back on the air with electronics. And after her first presentation, I pulled her aside. I said, let's do this. Let's tweak that. Not
so
in like Mean Girl, but as in,
No.
we want everybody to succeed.
It was so helpful. You were giving me best practices. And what it was specifically, Kirsten, is like I had always done apparel. So I wasn't having to talk through a lot of like product feature videos. And like I didn't really, it was a different format. Going on the air with technology was different than clothes, as it should be. But it was my first appearance back. I was nervous. And afterwards, you're like, okay, ready? Here it is, 60 seconds, like key insights, best practices. And it was honestly, it was so helpful. And instead of people being like, you were like, hey, here's how it went. Here's how you could do better. And you like within 24 hours, I was in it because of your help.
When Jamie and I first started a million years ago and she was with Zuda, I remember do you guys remember on QVC, there was that ab belt thing, like that tones your abs, which by the way, there's a newer version and I love it and I still use it. So yes, it actually works. But he was a good friend of mine, Brian Wade. I should have him on the podcast. And he said, you and Jamie should do a reality show together. Like he was really big on trying to get us to do a reality show. And I remember thinking that would be the most fun because we both can talk fashion and fitness and health. And you have this amazing brand ninja. You have workshops, you help businesses, you help corporations. But what I want to ask you is how is that verbiage that you used, everything is a branding and a messaging problem? How can that be applied to us as humans?
Because we're all a branding exercise, every single person. And by the way, this is why when I was first starting to do keynote speaking, and a big part of what I talk about is personal brand. And so a few of the speaker bureaus were like, oh, okay, so you can only talk to like, essentially B2C audiences. And what that means is like people who are, individuals or entrepreneurs. What they were saying is like, oh, you wouldn't take that message and go in and talk to a company, right? Because what do Microsoft employees need to know about personal brand? They're not their own personal brand. I said, oh, they're not?
Yeah, you are.
They're not? On what planet do you live that everybody in this day and age is not a personal brand? We're a personal brand inside our office place. We're a personal brand on social media and how we present ourselves to friends and family. You're a personal brand from a perspective of every day you wake up. The exercise is, what is my mission and what are my values? How am I living life in line with or on brand with that intentional philosophy? And if everybody's not doing the exercise to dig deep, what is my family's brand? What do we believe in as a family? What's important to us? What do we stand for? What do we stand against? If you haven't done that exercise and that work, and you're not doing your best to live in alignment with your assignment every day, what are you doing?
Y'all see why I had her on the podcast? Like this is it. When we talk about moving from stress to rest, reducing the bad stress in your life, increasing the good stress in your life, you cannot do that without having a clear identification of your purpose. And what Jamie is talking about really falls in line with purpose and branding, knowing your core values, knowing what you don't like, being able to make every decision for you and for your family through the filter of here is my branding or here is my purpose.
Stepping into your own personal brand, finding your unique voice and using it confidently to go after your highest dreams. That is what I teach.
So good. So give us some human takeaways for that when it comes to you're talking to a group of people who might be rather stressed out and are trying to kind of decrease that. How can this help? What are some takeaways?
Well, one of my favorite kind of memes is I can't cry about having a lot on my plate when my goal was to eat. And it's like, don't we hate that? Don't we hate that? It's so hard. That's a hard one to swallow, no pun intended. But, I kind of liken it to being in the shallow end of the pool versus the deep end. The deep end is where the magic happens, but it means you have to tread water. And that is flippin' hard. You have to be constantly moving. Otherwise, you can go back to the shallow end where you can stand, but you're stepping out of the magic. And so then how do we do? It's literally, by the way, this is a conversation we've been having since the beginning of time. Like my mom, and let's bring this part up now. My mom is TV journalist Joan London. She hosted Good Morning America for almost 20 years and was one of the kind of pioneers of, women in the workplace, and she famously kind of brought me into the studio with her when I was a baby and figured out how to manage that. But her keynote topic for the first 10 years of her going out on the road and speaking was, now that we have it all, how do we do it all? And that was kind of a play on like women. It's like, okay, now we're like, we wanted to be the boss, but now, okay, Miss Bossy Pants, now what,
Mm-hmm.
And so I really encourage people to, this is why I talk a lot about gratitude. So to take a step back, a big part of what I talk about is this phrase that I trademarked called gratitudology, which essentially is like the study and practice of gratitude. Now, why do I believe gratitude is so important? Gratitude is the key to keeping your head on straight. Gratitude is the key to waking up in your highest alignment, appreciating every day. I, like everybody else, get out of bed the same way. 1 foot, 2 foot anxiety. That is how, like, I'm no different than anybody else. And so sometimes when I'm teaching and people are like, oh, but this all seems so easy for you. I'm like, girl, I'm so glad you think that.
Yeah.
It is just as hard. However, I am able to get myself out of the muck and the mire quicker and get back to my idea of my personal brand, which is to be confident, abundant, from a place of service. But I can't live in that if I'm stuck in the anxiety. Like then I get stuck in my little girl voice, in the voice of me being beat down. I'm scared. I lack confidence. When I can step into the Jamiest Jamie of it all is when I am just sunk into this gratitude for what is versus being scared of what's not. I'll show you something funny. I have it right here. I always have these on my desk. I literally write myself love notes. I have one sitting on my desk. So I'm going to show it to you. I know most of the people will just be listening, but this says, I don't know if you can see it. I'll read it to you.
Read it to me.
These are love notes that I write myself all the time, like in my office, right before I go on stage, right before I go on Good Morning America. This one happens to say, I am focused. I am amazing. I am a baller. I am abundant AF. Now, why did I put pen to paper and write that down on a neon pink note card? Because my natural inclination is not to believe that about myself. My natural inclination is to suffer in self-doubt. It's just to be beaten down by me. But I know in the depths of my soul that this other thing is true that's on this card. When I put pen to paper, this is why affirmations work. And there's a lot of white papers and neuroscientific evidence on this. When I remind myself that and I put pen to paper and I say it out loud, it jostles me back into my highest self a little bit more and a little bit more. And it reframes how I perceive the world. So using a gratitude-based mindset to become a more inspired version of me allows me to love what I'm doing, and it allows me my ability to thrive. And that is my brand. That is my personal brand, is literally that. And so, I can't teach other people to do it if I'm not practicing it myself.
Right. Note that she says practice, and note that she says that she struggles with this as well. Nobody wins for being the best human. You don't hit 76 and go, oh, I did it. I practiced and I figured it all out and I'm perfect. It's constantly a practice, which is what you're doing.
What I love about you so much, Kirsten, is you're so real and vulnerable, especially on social media. And I really admire that. Yeah, because if people don't know that there's growing pains, they feel weird when they hit them themselves. And they feel like, yeah.
A lot of the magic comes in that.
Well,
a lot of the magic comes in the practice.
It comes in the practice. And I believe gratitude is the balm that soothes the friction of growing pains. So, people are scared to grow, but, if you combine the mindset work and the confidence and the gratitude, that lays the foundation to take the big steps forward and inspire other people, inspire your teams if you're a leader to do the same. But you have to be that beacon. You have to be that example that it's okay to not be okay and it's okay to be growing. Otherwise, people think it just happens by proxy. They see, oh, well, Kirsten shows up on TV and she's smiling every day. And then they think when it's not easy for them in that same way, when they don't just come out of bed with a smile on their face, they think they're doing it wrong and they want to give up. But by showing them that, there's little stumbles and roadblocks along the way, and you're just working on climbing over each one of them, just like the rest of us, I think that's so inspiring.
Thank you. You're so kind.
Yeah.
So what have yours been, Jane? Because you were NYC Fit Fam when I met you on Instagram. She still is, by the way. But you and your husband and your darling kiddos and all of that, what's been your growing pains? What got you here?
Well, what a great question. So yeah, my account was NYC Fit Fam. It's now my name, Jamie Hess, and that's intentional. The reason I changed my handle is because I do feel now that I'm more than just fitness and wellness, and that that is a part of my foundation. But now I've kind of opened up the aperture. So I'm speaking as much about mindset and abundance and optimizing your life as I am just about jumping jacks and eating an apple. That's part of what I talk about, but that's not
You should
all
all
of
do
it.
jumping jacks and eat an apple, but
We
you
sure
should also work on your brand.
Yes, exactly. And they're all part of, for me, the same pie. Okay, ready
And
for
not the pie, though. Don't eat the pie.
Well, don't try that. Well, you can have a little.
Not all the
pie.
time. Occasionally.
Okay, so here's my fun mic drop moment, because people looking at me at the outset probably wouldn't think this would be my story. But I was a sick and suffering, hopeless and helpless alcoholic and drug addict.
Wow.
Boom. Mic drop.
Nobody would think.
People, right. Well, and that's such a compliment that today you wouldn't think that, but trust me, you probably would have if you saw me in my teens or my 20s. But that's okay. Not only is it okay, I feel so bad for anyone who's not an alcoholic or an addict, because they don't get the magic and the spirit of recovery. Because here's the thing about 12-step recovery in particular. They always say about recovery, it's the only disease, because it is a classifiable disease, is addiction. It's the only disease that the treatment actually leaves you better than you started, right? Like if you have cancer and you do chemo, you just go in remission from cancer. But if you're an addict and then you do all the stuff that we do in recovery to get better, you actually come out a more spiritually minded, higher vibing version of yourself with better foundation and integrity and this whole blueprint for living. And it's like, wow, I'm so lucky.
That is so good.
Lucky.
I've never heard that. And I am a child of an alcoholic. I have addiction throughout my family. I go to Al-Anon, all of that. But I've never heard that. I love that.
I feel so blessed to be in recovery. And it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. But prior to that, I almost died. So that was a fun part of my life. But I'm so grateful that it also happened so young. It gave me the chance to start getting sober in my early 20s. That was a bit of like a merry-go-round. And I finally went away to treatment and kicked it into gear in my late 20s. But like, what a journey. And so because of that, when I came back from treatment and came back to like the real world and kind of hit the ground running again. At that point, I started falling up in my professional life. Like literally, Kirsten, I wasn't doing anything. Like I didn't get any new accreditations or take any classes, but I just started getting promoted. And why was I getting promoted? Well, my bosses were seeing me show up as a different version of myself. All of a sudden, I was a service-minded human. I was like quelling all the fires in the office. I was like Switzerland. I was the one never getting involved and rather, putting people, I was neutral and I was helping and I was a helper and I was a leader and I was just a charismatic, lovely part of the team. Whereas I used to be a tornado of death and destruction. And, I started getting these promotions and I found myself very quickly as the SVP of this big PR agency. Then concurrently at the same time, I started realizing that everything I had been looking for on the dance floor for all of those years, like, because what you're really looking for when you're a drug addict is like community acceptance, like where do I fit in? That's really what and turn off the noise in my brain, right? So like a mix of that. I found all of that stuff I'd been looking for on the floor of Barry's boot camp and Soul Cycle. And I was like, oh, like shared rhythm and tribal, movement. And like, oh my God, it was all there. Like, I was like, oh, who knew? I didn't have to be killing myself this whole time, but okay, live and learn. So, and a lot of people come into the program and they're like, oh, I have a lot of extra time on my hands. I guess I'll like get abs, So I kind of found my way to fitness because of this recovery journey as well. So through all of that is how I started this Instagram account, which I called NYC FitFam. And that just kind of meant FitFam was like a popular hashtag at that time. It was like how, finding a foundation of friendship and community through mostly boutique fitness. That's kind of what it meant back then. And so NYC FitFam seemed like a good way in. But through these journeys, through learning to rebuild my life in recovery, which taught me about discipline and showing up and being able to put my head on the pillow every night, feeling like I had ethics and integrity and I did the right thing. And if I didn't, because this is the 10th step, it's taking a daily inventory. If I didn't, owning up to it, taking accountability, saying, I'm sorry, how can I right the wrong? And then the same thing in my fitness life. How can I show up and be disciplined and drive resilience and mindset? All of these things I learned as a byproduct of being really broken. The blips are what made me who I am. Because we don't learn lessons by living a life in the gray. That's rather
life,
boring.
right?
Yeah, it's rather boring.
And I don't know of anybody who has an easy life. I mean, honestly, I think people looking on the outside would say, oh, well, Jamie did. She was raised by Joan London. And you would think easy, but now you hear, it wasn't easy and wasn't easy from an early age.
When I first went into recovery, I used to see people who had all of this trauma. Maybe they had abuse or sexual abuse, and it was really hard to hear. And then it started making me feel less than because I was like, well, what's my problem? What's my excuse for having a proclivity towards addiction. I learned later on that biologically I just had a proclivity towards addiction. So that's all. It's literally, I don't need an excuse. But that aside, anybody listening right now who might think like, God, I should just be happy. I have a good life. I should just be grateful. That's really helpful. And I teach this in gratitudology when I'm speaking on stage. Like, shooting yourself into something isn't going to do it. Like, if I just tell you you should be more grateful, yeah, dude, I know. We should all be more grateful. That's actually not a helpful directive. What I actually did was I really went back and I looked like, what was the problem? Or why did I feel like it took me so long to, I don't know. I just felt like I didn't get the handbook for life that everybody else got. And I always had such a hard time as a teenager. I feel like I didn't fit in, or I didn't belong, or I wasn't good enough. What I realized was I actually had this fear in the back of my head. My mom was so perfect that how do you ever live up to that? Wow. She was America's sweetheart. And so it just felt so overwhelming and daunting. And by the way, the lens through which I heard her was, you'll never be good enough. Did she ever say that to me once? Never. My mom is like the most lovely, like supportive, amazing mom and person on the planet. The lens through which I heard everything she said is, you're not good enough, just because it was an internalized belief. So I had to go back and say, like, you don't have to have abuse to have had trauma.
You know, that hits me at my core and kind of takes my breath away, because, and I wonder if you do this with your kids now, because okay, so you're not America's sweetheart necessarily, although you were an influencer before there were influencers. You are very recognizable, and you have these children who are living under, which can be a shadow. And I feel that way with myself sometimes. You know, QVC celebrity is a weird kind of celebrity, but it is a kind of celebrity at the same point. And we do get stopped places, and people do say, oh, you know, you're that family. And I wonder if my daughters ever feel that trying to live up to mom, even though, like, your mom would never say you're not good enough. You just felt it.
Yeah. What do you do about that? Do you have talks with them about it, or do you try to? I know, right?
Because I mean, high school girls, it's part of the reason why I left QVC. I say it all the time, is I have to be home with them and be more focused for these next couple of years to help them through this, because it is really, 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 really hard. And I see that trying to live up to everybody else. And I do a little bit see that trying to live up to mom, even though they see all the ugly and all the hard that I go through.
Well, it is good that you're very transparent about it. And I think that gives us a different lens. See, you see, I never saw a chink in my mom's armor, ever. We didn't have social media. You didn't show yourself warts and all on social media back in the 80s when my mom started on Good Morning America. All anyone saw, including me, really, because I think she was trying to just do what you do, which is be a good example and show your kids how to, like, you know, like dust it off, and get back out there and, you know, rub a little dirt on it and be tough. You see, my mom taught me that women should be able to take care of themselves. Don't ever wait for any man to, you know, take care of you. And she taught me a lot of important things, but it felt kind of unapproachable to me. One thing I think that we can do as any sort of parents with privilege, and I say that understanding that, you know, if you're bringing up your kids with privilege, it can really mess them up. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm so grateful for is that my husband is I think he's a little tough on them. We have this conversation all the time. If it were just me, though, the inmates would be running the asylum, because I'm like the fun mom. But my husband, very much like, they have chores. They understand the value of a dollar. They have to, like, do their own thing, take care of their own thing. We don't, you know, he does not let us solve problems for them. And I think the more that you can just raise them with values, because, you know, we build self-esteem by doing esteemable acts, right? So if you have a parent that's always making things easy for you, or bailing you out, or you're just living a life of privilege. I mean, look, I grew up riding horses, and I worked as a professional in the horse world in my late 20s. When I was getting back on my feet after treatment, I went back to my sport for a couple of years. I just said, I can't go back into the world of glitz and glam. I have to go back to my sport and, like, teach little girls how to ride ponies for a couple of years.
Love it.
Funny part about that was, though, I was living in Palm Beach and then LA, and I was teaching, like, the daughters of, you know, some of them, like,
these weren't
Steven
normal
Spielberg
girls.
And yeah. By the way, Destry Allen, daughter of Steven Spielberg, nicest girl in the world. So what I'm about to say is not about her. So I didn't want that connection to come up. But some of the daughters of celebrities that were in our riding program, some of the people that are the wealthiest people on the planet who I have had the occasion to ride with or teach or whatever are the most miserable humans I've ever unfortunately seen because there's something missing. They don't have an appreciation. Nothing matters. When you can buy anything, nothing matters. And it's so important to, as a mother, I think, to really raise kids with a sense of understanding purpose, understanding gratitude. You know, I'm definitely guilty of being one of those moms. Like if my kids show a bratty moment for 1 second, I'll literally go over the entire state of the world. I'm like, there are kids in the Ukrainian refugee tents right now. And they're like, okay, relax. I just wanted like 10 more minutes on my Switch. But you know what? There's kids in refugee camps right now. Like that's the reality of it. So like, buck up, buttercup, you know, and we're not whining. We're just not doing that today.
I get that so often, especially from the littlest guy these days. Oh, today's a horrible day. This is the worst. This is the worst day because, I don't know, he spilled something or he didn't get to be on his iPad or for 5 more minutes. And I'm like, really? Really? This is the worst day? You understand that? And again, just like you're saying, here's what other people are going through. And we did try to quell that by taking that time off in 2023 to go on that missions trip. We took our kids to Mexico for 3.5 months to serve at a Christian medical clinic. And that was a big part of the reason. I mean, mainline Pennsylvania, where we live, it's not real life. It's just not, you know, and if my kids are always whining because, oh, I don't have the newest iPhone or I'm not getting pliables every single day for lunch, like something's wrong.
But, you know, it's really a great, and this is why it comes back to personal brand. Who are we as a family? What do we stand for? It's the same. You have to understand, like I built and was under the hood with the core brand DNA of some of the biggest brands on the planet. I was with Barry's boot camp when we launched I still feel like I work for and with them because they're like my home, but I represented them for, you know, their first 6 years in New York City. If you don't know Barry's boot camp, it's one of the hottest boutique workout brands on the planet. And they had one location in West Hollywood where Kim Kardashian worked out and all these people. And then we opened our second location in Chelsea in Manhattan. And from the get-go, why was that brand so successful? They had a great workout, but so do a lot of other people. That brand was so successful because they knew their core brand DNA, what they stood for, what they were, what they weren't. They didn't overcomplicate it. You know, and everything we did was based around the nucleus of that foundation. And that is why they were so successful. They weren't wishy-washy and they weren't too much to too many people. They were very myopic in their focus. They were the best workout in the world. They were this, they were that. And it worked. And I've always used that as a case study. When you drill it down to the most simple elements of your core brand ideals, who am I? What do I want to present as? What am I for? What am I against? That's like level 1. And then beyond that, and what can I do about that on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis to show up like that?
So true. It's so true. It is so true for ourselves as well. You have to know what you stand for so that every single decision that you make in life, when you're stressed out about a decision, because a lot of our stress comes from, do I do this or do I do that? Worrying over decision making, worrying over which path to take. And if you can be very drilled into your brand as a family, as a person, as a career person, it's easy to make those decisions. I mean, well, you are somebody who works with a lot of brands. You have a successful podcast. You have you speaking, all that kind of thing. You have to be inundated with offers to do things, but you have to as well, because you know your brand, be able to say yes and no very easily. Is that correct?
So I'm on the phone with different brands every single day. And this is why I never sleep. I rate like on average.
Okay, but you have to sleep. I'm going to stop you there.
I knew you were going to say that. And it's like, we're here talking about stress. And I don't know that I'm the best person in the world. I don't feel a lot of stress, but I do so much that I can be better in my self-care practices as it pertains to sleep. I would say that as I've grown as a business person, I am the first to admit that where I used to be so fitness forward, so wellness forward, I work every day to strike the balance, to get it back. Because now my ambition has taken the driver's seat and my wellness is a passenger, and sometimes it gets in the back seat. And so I feel
aware. That. Like that
very aware
totally hit me right there. I mean, at the time of this recording, I've only been out of corporate America for a week.
Mm-hmm.
I think a week today. And yet I feel like I'm so fired up and jazzed about, Kirsten Liquist LLC and everything that I'm doing, that I feel that same thing, like, oh, wellness is my business, but it's also like I have to fit it in a little bit more than I used to before.
It's a struggle. No, you're completely right. And it's a struggle. And I find that having coaches actually really helps. So I think anybody who is a coach should have a coach. I have business coaches, and they really help me because when I first started as an entrepreneur, I put everything on the board at once. Like, I'm going to write, now that I don't have this corporate job, I'm going to be speaking on 10 stages and write 7 books, and I'm going to have a TV show and do this and do that. And it's like, guess how many things came to fruition in my first 90 days of being an entrepreneur? Zero. Because I was that meme where I had 16 tabs open. One of them was playing music and I didn't know which one. Like, I started everything and finished nothing. And I needed help prioritizing. What's a 30-day plan? What's a 6-month plan? What's a year plan? Like, and then back timing into that. What are the deadlines and deliverables against these things? What's realistic? Where do I need help or a third-party vendor as a resource? What can I do myself? And all of that. So all of that said, I'm on the phone with brands every single day. So a big part of what I do, so people understand, yes, I'm on QVC. I'm an on-air personality on QVC and a lot of other places, but I'm a brand ambassador. So I am a content creator, meaning like, I'm doing quote things with my fingers. I'm an influencer. That has a bad name for a lot of people, but I think that's because,
why is that? Why do we cringe when we say influencer?
I think because being an influencer, it has a bad rap because there's a lot of bad actors. I think there's a lot of people out there doing it without integrity. They're holding up a tube of toothpaste saying, buy this toothpaste, but they never use the toothpaste. They don't care about the toothpaste.
Yeah.
It happens. It totally happens. There's a lot of influencers also, and I hear this pain point from brands I talk to all the time who don't understand marketing. So they're like, well, I make beautiful content, pay me. And it's like, but did it move the needle? Does this person understand KPIs? Like, key performance indicators? Do they understand marketing objectives and priorities? And is the content that they're making actually affecting the brand's bottom line? If not, what the hell did they pay you for? So like the call that I just got off right before you and I were on the phone, I spent more time asking questions than talking about myself or what I could do. Like, tell me exactly what your marketing objectives are. What message are you trying to get across? Is it national or regional? Tell me about your customer avatar. Like, who are you trying to reach? So that when I come back with a proposal, it's going to be super dialed in. But I want to say this, like, beyond all the tactical, practical, mindset wise, when I get on a call, number one, I've done this back work, I'm holding up my pink note card again, my mindset work. So I know who the F I am stepping on that call. And I'll tell you this, there are a lot of things, Kirsten, that I do not do well in this world. Okay. I cannot cook for what. I can hardly keep a houseplant alive. But when it comes to selling to brands, at this, I cannot be beat. And why? Because I look at myself immediately like a strategic partner. I come from a place of service. I come from a place of gratitude. I'm grateful that they're on the phone with me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to affect their bottom line and to help their business. And that is how I want to show up. I don't just want a check. Because if I just get a check, but I don't deliver in the way that I promised, it's one and done. And I don't want one check. I want 10 checks. Yeah. I'll be honest about that. I don't just want to be of service.
Right.
I'm a capitalist. I love making money. But what's the point if I'm going to leave a bad taste in their mouth and not make more money? I want to make you money so it makes me more money. Let's be real. Right?
Yeah.
So I know who I am getting on that call. And I've done that work so that they feel that. And they feel I'm not in a diminished position. I don't get on the call scared. I get on knowing exactly what I want from a monetary perspective, from a bandwidth perspective. But I also get on the call knowing that immediately from the second we get on the call, we're homeboys, we're broskies. We are right there together. We are on the same path, on the same journey. Let's do this together. And that is why why my Instagram is so highly monetized, because I am out there as a partner with all of these brands. And once we do one great thing, it's like, what else can we do? Let me think more 360. I have turned a $5,000 Instagram post into a $500,000 360 brand deal. And it's one of the case studies I teach in my course, Brand Ninja. And it's one of my proudest moments because they engaged me for one $5,000 Instagram post. But by the end, I had shown so much value that they were happy to engage me in this $500,000 deal, which was a full year deal. Yeah.
It really is. And by the way, all of this can be found. You need to follow Jamie, her courses in Brand Ninja, listen to her speak when you can, hire her to speak if you're somebody out there who can do that. All of this can be found there, and she can talk you through this and teach you this. Is this something that you want to know more about? When we go back to the gratitude part of it, we always talk about 5 things in the morning that you're grateful for and 5 things at night that you're grateful for. And that is a very important practice. And there is psychological studies behind gratitude and its increase in longevity and increase in making you happy. The gratitude you're talking about sounds like to me, if we hold up that card, it sounds like it's more even gratitude towards yourself.
Yes.
It's not just, I'm so thankful I have a house, or I'm so thankful for this cup of coffee, but it's gratitude towards yourself. I'm badass. I am healthy. Like, right?
It really is. And I think that's so important. So when I teach the pillars of what I teach in gratitudeology, a big part of it is really sinking into what makes you you and what makes you amazing, and taking those parts that are your strong suits and just amplifying them. And you hear me. So let me be really clear, because, we all have different sensibilities, and some people get sharing how much I've made over the course of my career. I've had people in my comments say, well, why do you have to share that? Is that a flex? Yeah, well, sure, it's a flex. Sure. But that's not why I share it. I don't need to share my bank account. I'd be very happy just making that and keeping it in my own bank account. I share it to share what's possible. I share it because I'm really nobody special. And if I can do it, you can do it too. When I say nobody special, I mean, I'm no better or no worse. We're all just out there walking the same path, one foot in front of the other. If I can do it, you can do it too. So I want people to know what's available and what's possible. And it's possible because I leaned into the strongest parts of myself. And I wasn't afraid to say, hey, I'm really good at this. I'm not really good at that. I'm really, really good at this. So let me lean into and amplify that. I'm also, one of my pillars is I talk about embrace and then embrace. Embracing the challenges. So my biggest thing is every time there's, like what we talked about earlier, a blip, a roadblock, a challenge, leaning into it to find the lesson. I think that's one of the biggest things. So I'll give you an example. You don't have to be a drug addict to have this, right? Like that's like my crazy mic drop story,
okay.
Right? Okay. But okay, how about my challenge for the day is I have to have a difficult conversation with my boss, or I have to ask for a raise, or I have to go on a sales call. Because I have this is something I talk, like when I'm coaching women, those things come up a lot. We get intimidated. We get scared. Oh, I'm just not good at sales. First of all, don't ever say that again. The more you say it, it's true. And nobody's good at sales. Most people, there's some people that were just born for it, but nobody thinks they're good at sales. But we got to get over it. This 2025, get over it. Stop telling yourself you're bad at something. Practice it and you'll become good at it. But the point is, when you have to have that difficult conversation, what if you flip the switch and you said instead, what an opportunity to practice doing something hard so I can get better. And
That's great.
Every single thing that is a roadblock, like when I wake up and I have to have a really hard conversation with somebody, that will literally hang over me like a dark rain cloud all morning. And when I learned to flip the switch, it opened up so much more space energetically. Like I stopped letting those things weigh on me or freak me out for 2 or 3 days prior to having to have that conversation or that phone call. And I realized, oh my God, like when I just take a place of empowerment, wow, I'm so lucky to have the chance to do that. Let me show up fired up and prepared as I'm going to be. And then all of a sudden it's an opportunity. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to let myself be human. The best is the best I can do. And that's that. And all of a sudden you're not getting beaten down by all of life's challenges.
It's all practice. The way that I kind of do the same thing with people, I have them ask themselves 10 questions first thing in the morning. And part of it is getting into devotional, getting into the word and your higher power. And for me, that's Jesus. But I have people ask themselves what's going to stress them out and how are you going to react? So and just kind of like what you said, it's that rain cloud hanging over your head. I know I have to have that conversation in 12 hours or in 4 days or whatever it is. So it's something that you're looking into the future that you know is going to stress you out. But identifying it, taking it, putting it on paper, just like you do how wonderful you are, putting that on paper, also putting on paper the things that are going to stress you out, and then writing your reaction to it. And for Jamie, she's telling you to write down, okay, flip the switch. This is an opportunity. This isn't a stressor. This is a chance for me to learn to that thing that is going to stress me out. It's very powerful and it works.
It is so powerful. And I mean, everything in a day. I mean, look, I'll be honest. I love my kids. I would jump off a cliff for them. But I am not a stay-at-home mom. Different things fill different people's cups. I would not be a good stay-at-home mom. My cup is filled by work, and that's what makes me a better mom. So when I have to, when my nanny calls out sick or something, and all of a sudden I have to step into this different role, that probably stresses me out more than anything, because it probably brings up feelings of like, am I good? Am I good enough? Am I going to do this right? This just happened the other day, in case you're like, well, interesting. This seems like a very visceral, top of mind example.
No, this is for so many people.
It's for so many people. And all of a sudden I was like, are you kidding me? You're getting stressed out over the chance, the opportunity to show up and have a beautiful day connecting with your children, to show up and feel proud of yourself for being a mom, which is sometimes, of course, any working mom has this guilt. Sometimes I feel guilty if I can't be at every single thing. Well, here's an opportunity. God is giving it to you, right? So it's like these little things that like I am programmed to immediately think of the stress in it. I am programmed to think, I can't, it's not going to go right, blah, 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 blah. So this truly is a practice, but the more you practice it, the more it becomes an intuitive part of your thinking.
Yeah, that's so true. It happened to me 2 minutes before this podcast. My daughter said, hey, do I have to take the bus today? Can you pick me up? And part of me taking a step back from corporate America, like I said, is to spend more time with my children. And it made me feel guilty that I had to say, no, I have a podcast. I can't come pick you up. But how do I flip that switch to make that's an opportunity? I can show my daughter, hardworking mommy. Maybe God has something else planned. Maybe she's supposed to be on that bus to talk to somebody.
That's a great,
it's all opportunity.
And there's probably 5 things that you could go down the road. There's probably a lot of good that would come from it. But I also just want to say this. I mean, my mom growing up obviously had a very demanding job, but she was at a lot. She was at all my horseback riding competitions and all of the things, unless she couldn't be. And if she could be, she just let us know that we are very, very important. Of course, we're the most important, but so is work, because she's a working mom. And why? Because you should be proud of the work that you do. And that is how she takes care of us and our family. And so she taught me that it's okay to teach your kids, you're important and so is work. And I'm doing my best to balance both. But what she showed me was you should take pride in your work and you should follow through on your commitments. And if you committed to a job and if you're, on Good Morning America, and that means you can't come to the ballet recital, nobody has to walk around feeling guilty. And she's also not going to say, I'm sorry 150 times. She's going to say, you're important, but so is work. And I have a work commitment. One day I hope you feel as inspired and passionate about your work too. I can't wait to see that for you. And, she taught me what it really means to be a powerful and successful working mom. And for that, I am so grateful as an adult.
I think a lot of us lose ourselves in the child rearing. We do feel, and I'm not talking about young kids. There's so many women out there who are raising 30 and 40-year-olds still, honestly.
Yeah.
For a variety of different reasons. But you lose yourself in caring for them. And it's the same thing with caring for aging parents. You lose yourself in caring for aging parents or spouses that are sick, and you stop considering yourself somebody who has needs and needs to be taken care of. Jamie said something very important. She said her cup is filled by working. You have to imagine that your cup needs to be so full that it overflows for all the other people. You cannot give to everybody else on an empty cup.
The most true thing in the world. And, there's that old adage. It's like, number one, when mom's happy, we're all happy. But the reality is you can't give from an empty cup. And if you don't take care, is the oxygen mask thing, right? If you don't put the oxygen mask on yourself first, you truly are not well to take care of the rest of your family. And that's the God's honest truth. And, we say it takes a village, and a lot of people are like, where's my village? But you got to ask for help, right? You have to ask for help. Nobody can do all of it alone. I've seen so many women get so lost and just believe less of themselves. Women who used to have really high-powered careers, and then they get kind of shadowed into a corner as, moms. And so a lot of what I do, a lot of the women I work with, is really just helping them step back into this confidence that they're like, oh my God, I used to have this confidence. I don't know where it went. I kind of got beaten down. And look, a big part of that is like getting dressed every day, not wearing sweatpants all the time. Again, that's personal brand. How do we step out of the house every day? And how do we step into, or you don't have to be leaving the house, but it's about how do I feel every day about what I'm putting forward to the world, even if the world is just, your golden retriever and your 5-year-old.
Yeah, that's so absolutely true. How is mom, by the way? How is your mom? We talked a lot about her. How is she doing?
My mom is great. In fact, I was just on the phone with her. I'm going down to see her in Florida, and I can't wait. My mom is, as a lot of people followed, she had breast cancer for several, a while, and then she's been in remission for several years and is doing well health-wise. And we're so grateful. And my mom is my best friend. My mom and my sisters and I are so incredibly close. And she's been my role model for my entire life. Once I got past like the teenage angst that kind of followed me into my 20s where I saw myself through that lens of being less than. And this is again how recovery reframed me into seeing things in real life as they actually were. And once I could right size all of that, my mom has been my best friend ever since. And so she's been my role model forever. And what's so cool is that now we work together a lot. And we do a lot of keynote speaking together and brand work. And we've been on the road together. And it's so cool to be an adult and to see your parent as a friend and an equal and a lateral. What a gift to get to have that with your mom in adulthood.
So true. So you did go through that. As you said, you went through the phase in high school, but then everybody says it comes back around. Like they might not like you when they're in high school, but wait till their 20s.
Well, I think it's because we don't like ourselves a whole lot in high school. And that's just a very teenage girl condition. And it's unfortunate, but again, we have to go through it to learn who we are. So it's painful. It's really painful. But I don't think that any of my angst with my mom had anything to do with my mom. Literally. My mom did literally nothing wrong. My mom did literally nothing wrong. And so when I look back and I'm like, I so full of, I mean, hate's a way too strong word, but I was full of this anger and vitriol and as if she made me feel a certain sort of way. I just didn't understand that the call was coming from inside the house. I just couldn't see it. But, it takes personal work.
And now you're helping so many people. So working through this gratitude, which is a super important practice, and that alone can help you reduce stress. Also, brand work. Brand Ninja is her course, making sure you're working through your own personal brand, your purpose. And then also if you happen to have a corporation or be a business, that's super important as well. What part does health and fitness now play in your life after kind of recovering from NYC Fit Fam going into Jamie Hess?
Well, it will always play a central role. And in fact, and to be clear, Brand Ninja is for people who want to work with brands. So I teach people how to secure the 5 and 6 figure brand deals of their dreams, even if they don't have hundreds of thousands of followers. And that is what I do. So Brand Ninja. So I speak on stages about gratitudeology. I have a book coming out Thanksgiving 2026 around gratitudeology with Corto Publishing and all of that. But when I teach Brand Ninja to people, right? Individuals that want to work with brands in the way that I do. So the way that I work with brands is I get paid to post on Instagram, go on television, do all sorts of different programs, both social, digital, and experiential with brands to help them tell their story and amplify their story. So the way that health and wellness still plays such a role is that most of my partnerships that I do are with health and most of the partnerships I do are with health and wellness brands because that's always been my core DNA. So for instance, right now I just started working with NMDP, which is a charity that helps people with blood cancers. So they basically put money into research and cell therapy and all of these different things to help people with blood cancer. So I'm actually doing Run Disney. I'm so excited. I'm sure I'll see, I think Jane Tracy's doing the 10 miler. I'm doing the 10K. I'm 10 miles that's too much.
But Amy Richter from Lug will be there.
Yeah,
you got a lot. You got QVC people
that do it. Yes. So they engaged me to do Run Disney and to do a big fundraising effort on their behalf. Great example of how not only is it a health and wellness, and again, this is where, like I said, influencers might have a bad name if they're just kind of doing these myopic, one-dimensional posts. This is a major journey that I'm taking, and I'm inviting people to kind of join along with me on this journey to do something really good. I just got the phone with IV Active, which is a company here in Pennsylvania, who is doing concierge IV services in homes. My biggest goal is to share the incredible things that health and wellness brands are doing, because that is my core DNA. So what I teach in Brand Ninja, which by the way, you can find at coachjamiehess.com, is I help people, number one, figure out what is your core brand DNA. What do you want to be talking about? And if you're somebody who's well, I don't know, because a lot of people don't know. They're I trained somebody the other day. She's she's a media trainer. And she's well, I don't know, what kind of brand deals could I be doing? I teach people how to go on television. I said, what kind of brand deals could you be doing?
Only all of them.
I mean, literally anything that help. What? Okay, so what do you need to be good on TV? You need healthy hydration. You need good nutrition to keep the brain working. You need supplements, nootropics. You need good sleep. So let's talk about things that are sleep wellness focused.
You need
Maybe
clothing.
You're on the road.
You need makeup.
Yes, you need luggage. You need clothing. You need makeup. So all of these brands, all of a sudden she's oh, she could be doing brand deals with all of these brands, but she had never considered that before. So I help people understand, number one, who am I? And number two, what does that mean in the context of other brands? And then number three, how do I pitch? What kind of programs could I be doing? And number four, how do I close deals and then go for bigger and better? Because that's what jazzes me up. I love seeing people succeed. And I think in this day and age, it's very, very scary being alive. Let's just be real. Like the world's a hot dumpster fire, and it's a very scary time just to wake up in the morning. But I also think it's scary. The workplace economy is scary. We never know what's going to happen. And I encourage people, solopreneurship is magic. To not have to wait to, get hired or wondering if you're going to get laid off, but to instead be able to take the reins into your own hands as a personal brand and then understand how you could monetize that is very, very empowering.
Oh, this is all so good. So what about your own personal health and wellness? Are there non-negotiables in your life?
So I'm very lucky that my husband and I are both on this wellness journey together because he keeps me honest. Like like I said, I'll want to prioritize work over sleep. I'll want to prioritize a lot of things. But because accountability is such a big part of what I teach and what I do and what I believe, we asked each other a long time ago to hold each other accountable. And part of that is being open to it. Like I can't ask him to hold me accountable to my wellness goals and then give him side eye when he's like, babe, did you skip your workout today? Like right. I got to be, I got to take it. If I ask for it, I got to take it. But we really do. We make every week, every Sunday night is our planning night for the week. And that includes signing up for whatever classes he doesn't take classes, he weightlifts, but I love to take classes like yoga and Pilates and spin. So we sign up for the classes. We make the time in the schedule for things like prayer and meditation. So we actually have a meditation practice with our kids in the morning. That is 2 minutes of mindfulness meditation, like with, frequency. We play, something off of YouTube with a certain frequency. Then we do 2 minutes of gratefuls and then one round of gratefuls and then one round of affirmations. And so a couple things that we're grateful for and then a couple affirmations like I am strong, I am a helper, whatever the kids want to say. Those are very important practices in our day and they don't take a lot of time. So I say to everybody, like the journey of a million miles starts with a single step. You don't have to be running a marathon tomorrow and don't feel bad if you're not. But as long as you're putting like a small, a piece of the puzzle into play and it's non-negotiable, like you just said. And then the last piece of that is maybe asking somebody to hold you accountable, whether it's a husband or a sister or a girlfriend. That or a right coach. There, or a coach, especially a coach, because sometimes we can't help but give the husband side eye. And sometimes the husband might not be the right person because we're not going to listen. Sometimes it's actually very helpful to pay a third party coach to say, all right,
you're
girl,
not on the same wavelength. Your spouse or your partner can be fantastic, but they're not in that same journey.
Of course. Absolutely. So hire Kirsten Lindquist. She's an excellent coach.
Or Jamie. Just say. I always ask all of my guests if there's any supplements that they love because we talk a lot about supplements on this podcast. Is there anything you love?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? I like waver between a lot of different things all the time. I was taking a product called MitoQ that I really like, which is good for mitochondrial health. I am a kind of back to basics kind of girl. I also feel that a lot of the supplements I was taking for a lot of years, I've realized that they're potentially not bioavailable to me in the way that I'm taking them, which is why I love IV Active or an IV therapy for that, because I think that getting to the source of things is actually really, I love the fact that we can go get an IV and you don't have to go to the hospital and you can get like glutathione and NAD and all of those things. At the bare minimum, I take things like every single day I take B vitamin and I also take fish oil. That's like a non-negotiable. Even though I'm vegan, I take fish oil. So that's one thing like
omega-3s.
You really can't get the same type of, it's just, you can't. So I actually take krill oil and I do love Goli. I've worked with Goli for a long time and I always take the Goli gummies. And to be honest, is it the most bioavailable? I don't know, but they taste delicious.
They're super tasty.
They're super tasty. And then I also take iron when it's that time of the month because I feel like that's very important. And I take magnesium and I'm missing one. That's a big one.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin D. Thank you. That's literally the other one that I was missing.
It's like she couldn't not be taking D.
Oh, and yes. And especially because I'm vegan, a lot of those things were recommended to me. I also did a scan. One last thing I'll say, I'll just give like a little shout out. Prenuvo, if you've heard of that. So it's a scan that you could do. It's like the full body scan. I learned about it because like Kim Kardashian did it. And I was like, what's this? They have them in a bunch of major cities. I know they're expanding more and more. It's essentially one of those full body scans that you could do to find out if anything is going on. It's like a proactive measure that you can take. And I was really grateful to do that because I'm also like a hypochondriac and I always think like that I'm probably dying 12 different ways. And they took the scan and they're like, You're actually not.
You're not.
And I was like,
Yeah.
good news.
Because your mom had breast cancer, did you get tested for the gene?
Yes. So I did get tested for the gene. I'm fine on that. However, one of the things that I was so proud of the other day. So I had just gotten my mammogram, which I get every year, of course. And I got that letter that they send now that said, because of, recent congressional advances, it is now, we are required to tell you and to offer to you, you have dense breast tissue and we are offering you additional imaging. And the reason that bill passed is because my mom went to Capitol Hill and lobbied for it because she has dense breast. And when she got her mammogram, she had a clear mammogram. And they said, if you would like to do additional testing, go for it, but it's $1,200. And she did the testing and she had stage 2 breast cancer, Kirsten. And she said, she goes, thank God I had $1,200, but I have to imagine 99% of people, I'm raising my hand on this. I probably would have said,
me too.
Keep your $1,200. Like, I'm not doing that. She's like, if I hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't be here. She said, it's ridiculous that people should have to pay out of pocket for additional testing. And so she was part of what made that bill pass. So I'm very, very proud of that because I also have dense breast tissue and so do both my sisters. And so we all get the additional testing.
Wow. So that's so interesting you say that because I do too. I always get that this year, mine's coming up in the next couple of weeks. I bet I'll get that. I'll have to do the additional testing now. Yep. That's amazing.
Grateful that exists. Yes.
Wow. What's one thing that everybody could do right now after listening to this to help them reduce stress in their life?
So can I say 2 things? They both have to do with gratitude. So, it sounds so Pollyanna to just say like, make a gratitude list. And it's like everyone tells you to do that. But I'm here to tell you the simplest things to do are also the simplest to skip. When was the last time you actually put pen to paper and made a gratitude list? Made a list of 3 things that you're grateful for. You don't have to go crazy. 3 things for which you're grateful. My husband has a gratitude text chain with a bunch of his buddies. He's also in recovery, so a bunch of his recovery buddies. And so it makes them do it once a day. So actually doing the grateful list for yourself, a list of 3 things, can literally just like it's a palate cleanser. It puts you back in a good energy space. But the other thing I want to say is that gratitude is a pro-social exercise. And if we only practice gratitude by sitting and doing it in a journal by ourselves, you're missing a big part of the point. So I would say the second thing I'd like you to do is to turn around and pick up the phone and call or text somebody else in your life and tell them how grateful you are for them. Because just that little moment of connection is really good for your soul. And the proof is in the pudding. There's so much data that says that people who have the best connections, relationships in life are the happiest. And there was a big 5-generation test done out of Harvard that showed they studied 5 generations of people and families. And the people who had the highest happiness ratio were not people with the highest IQ or the most wealth or the most fame. They were the people who had the best relationships in their life. So that's a very important piece of the puzzle.
So important. And so true. It's the 4th main component to your wellness, or your relationships and your spirituality. You've got to have those. Well, I'm grateful for you being in my life from a decade ago when you started with Zuda, or however long ago it was, to now, and all your success and everything that you're doing to help serve others. It really is remarkable. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Jamie Hess, and my DMs are always open. You can also find me at meetjamiehess.com. That's my speaking site. And then you can find me at coachjamiehess.com for my Brand Ninja course.
Great. Thank you for your time, friend. Well, we're going to pivot a bit on the next episode of StRest, and we're going to dive into nutrition. I can't wait for you to hear from Natalie Fader. You know her as the nutritional therapist on Instagram. She's actually a Canadian, but she does a lot of one-on-one coaching with people in the US as well. She has an amazing background all the way to Harvard when it comes to nutrition. But what she does is help you understand that connection between your behavior as well as your nutrition. Have you ever said, I know what to do, I just can't seem to do it? Oh yeah, just about everybody. We are going to help you fix that. That's coming up in the next episode of StRest.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others find the podcast and join our community. Follow me on social media at Kirsten.Lindquist for daily tips and inspiration. And visit my website at www.kirsten-lindquist.com to sign up for our newsletter and receive exclusive content. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The host of this podcast is a certified health coach and medical researcher, not a licensed medical professional, and the content shared does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we encourage you to do your own research and consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare treatment plans. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.